Nothing contained in this podcast should be considered a substitute for professional medical advice. This content does not represent our respective employers and is purely the opinion of the podcast hosts. We are not your personal medical providers. Sorry, friends. So, if you have concerns or seeking a diagnosis or treatment, please seek individual advice from a healthcare provider in your area. We are not liable for any risks associated with acting upon the information contained in this podcast. This is intended for educational and entertainment purposes only, so enjoy the ride.
Please drink responsibly and in moderation. Before drinking, please be sure to be of the legal drinking age for your country. We do not encourage the misuse of alcohol.
Welcome to Medical Media Mixer, the perfect cocktail. I'm Nicole Peniston, psychologist.
And I'm Tara Prisco, physician assistant. And you can hear my dog Evie barking at that exact moment.
Of course. Then that's Evie in the background.
Yes. She sees somebody outside living life.
And how dare they?
Right?
Especially without her.
Seriously. Oh, wait.
I get it.
On.
I get it, Evie.
I realized something super important.
Uh-oh.
We're going to have to cut this out in a second. I need to charge
I don't want to cut anything out.
I need to charge my computer. I plugged everything in and I left the power cord in my bedroom. I will be right back and we'll cut that out.
Sounds good.
Now we need the elevator music like they use on, and that's why we drink.
Yes, but
stand by
better. I just looked in our spam emails and there's a lot of spams about apparently final legal notice prior to final legal notice prior to litigation. Well, if it's in spam, then it's not an actual email. That's for you listeners out there.
All right. We have a lot of catching up to do because we haven't recorded in like over 2 weeks, I think. Yeah, it was
more than that.
Yeah, it's been a while. We were super ahead. So we're recording. It's actually September 11th when we're recording. So we're gonna,
sad.
Yeah. Nicole was actually in New York when that happened.
I was. Yes, I was there to witness everything. So.
Yeah.
And I think this is the first year that I didn't immediately wake up and have a panic attack. So that was pretty nice.
24 years.
Only 24 years, yeah. Yes, only 24 years. But,
wow.
Yes.
So we're going to try and lighten up our energy and
drink.
And drink. All right, I'm going to do my shaker now so I can
sound effects.
All right.
And for those of you not seeing video, I also did a little bit of a shake myself.
No. You know when it gets really cold and you can't
and then you can't open it.
The thing off the shaker. All right. There we go.
I was going to say that's bonus content. Tara struggling with the shaker.
That is very sound. All right. And then I got to put my little bit of sparkle on top.
Ooh, very ASMR.
It really is. You don't realize it until you're listening through a microphone, how those things and headphones, how those things sound. So I'm going to cheers. This is actually my birthday episode, even though it is 3.5 weeks prior to my birthday. But this episode will come out on October 6th. So cheers to turning 46.
Look at how good that cheers was. It was
a
super
pretty glass.
Thank you. I think I got it at Walmart.
So it will be in 3.5 weeks when this comes out. It will be my birthday. So everybody go on our socials and wish me happy birthday.
And yes, Tara's the first one to have a birthday during our podcast.
Yes.
Which means she's older than me.
Just by a little bit. Not even 2 months, less than 2 months.
Yeah.
So anything interesting the past few weeks though, since we haven't spoken?
Yes, I went to not one, but 2 wine festivals.
Oh, you are just the wino.
And I am. And at both of them, I saw our good friends from the Kind Vine.
That's cool.
They really recognized me. They were talking about how much they love the pod and how they listen. And it was just really nice to, we've now met them 3 times and they're on board. So I thought that was really cool.
Yeah. And definitely listeners follow them on socials. We've been following them. They go to all different wine events, wineries throughout, and they have these really neat art pieces that are designed by like really neat local artisans, right?
Yes, they do.
And you had bought those coasters from them.
They make coasters, wine glasses, cutting boards, really, really cool, nice handmade stuff. So check them out. The Kind Vine.
Yes.
Yes.
Anything else? So did you pick up any good wine at the wineries?
Of course I did. Yeah. So one was a wine festival that I thought was in a town called Red Bank, but it was actually at Red Bank Battle Park, which is on the opposite side of the state.
Yes.
It was very nice. I kept thinking that my GPS was taking me the wrong way, but we had a very, very nice time. Yeah. And bought a lot of wine. Shout out to my friend Dana, who went with me. Nice. And then last week I went to Wine on the Beach in Seaside with my friend Diana. Shout out to Diana. And I didn't purchase as much wine, but we had a very nice, enjoyable time.
Did you get rained on?
No, it didn't really start to rain until the very tail end of it. So it ran from like noon to 5 and it started raining about 4:45.
Okay. Yeah. See, what happened was I was going to meet up with you, and then it was like the last possible pool day of the year. We close our pool after this weekend, and I invited my mom over, and of course, like we were out there and it was like pouring, but it wasn't lightning. So yeah, we sat like under the umbrella while like the kid was in the pool and sort of.
And it was still warm out, so still cool
we
weather.
ended up inside eventually for like food, but like to eat. But it was just one of those things that like it wasn't supposed to rain till like 5, but it rained earlier on us.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of what happens sometimes, but sounds like you still had a good time.
Oh yeah, it worked out. And then I was on vacay prior to that. And I have to tell you, it was the most relaxing vacation I've had in a while. I have to say.
And wait, you just went away like a couple months ago and showed pictures of you relaxing in a cabin. So
yes, that's true. 2 different kinds of relaxing. Yeah. This was a beach vacation in South Carolina. I'm not going to disclose the exact beach because it's such like a good secret, basically, that it's not super overpopulated yet, and I don't want it to become that because I want to go there again. And but we rented a house right on the beach every morning, having your coffee, sitting out on the deck, going out to the beach for a couple hours, running back and forth to the house if you need food or you need whatever, playing board games, having cocktail hour before dinner on the deck, looking at the ocean. Just hearing the ocean in the background, the waves crashing for an entire week is really, really relaxing. So a lot of reading, a lot of board games. That was like, and no schedule. It was nice. Just kind of like, okay, you want lunch? Okay. What are we going to do for dinner tonight? All right, we'll figure that out. It was just really neat. So it's not always that way. Sometimes vacations are go. This was like truly just chill.
Nice.
So now I need to save enough money to buy a house there. So one day. So we can get a little bit rolling on today's topic. So, fun fact. Other than it being my birthday, do you know what October 6th is?
Of course I do, because I read the notes. It's National PA Day.
It is. It is National Physician Assistant Day, which is part of National Physician Assistant Week.
You get a whole week. There's no Psychologist Day or week.
There's not?
No. There's
You're
Mental Health
me.
Professionals Week. There's LCSW's Week. Yeah.
Really?
Social Worker Month. But yeah.
That's a little crazy.
Yeah.
That's a little cuckoo bananas. Like, well, so I'm going to use physician assistant. Our national organization did agree that our name will be changed to physician associate, but each state has to individually change their wording. And so since my state hasn't, and I've been doing this for over 20 years, and it's just ingrained in me to say physician assistant or PA. So for all those out there, eventually we will go by physician associate.
At least the initials won't change.
Well, that's a big reason they did that. There was a whole thing. There were like years of meetings and voting to come up with this because they wanted to reflect what we actually do nowadays better. But changing the letters and changing the acronym felt like it was going to be too confusing for patients. So that's why they stuck with PA this way. So my drink. Yes. My drink is called the Royal Remedy. And credit to ChatGPT because that's who came up with it, not I. So the way that my friend Chat, we're going to call him that. I didn't name him anything else.
So creative.
He came up with, he said it's a luxe summery cocktail with a healing touch.
Okay.
So it's 2 ounces of vodka, 1 ounce of fresh cucumber juice,
I love
half
cucumber.
an ounce of elderflower liqueur, 0.75 ounce of lime juice, 0.5 of mint syrup, and then you shake that all in a shaker, pour it in your glass, and then top it with some sparkling water. So, fun trick or fun fact, I was like, oh, cucumber juice is one of those things, like, how am I going to find it? Like, maybe Whole Foods will have it, maybe someone else, Trader Joe's will have it, but like, it's not something you're just going to find easily. So I was on my Instacart kind of like looking like, all right, can I find cucumber juice? I can make mint syrup. That's fine. And then I found this juice that actually, I'll tell you the brand because I took a picture before I came up. Langer's.
I was just going to say, I own that. I have it downstairs in my refrigerator right now.
Cucumber, lime, and mint juice.
And isn't it so
like,
good?
It's so good. Like, it's really refreshing. So I ended up using that for those ingredients because I'm like, why not? And the ratio, like, I ended up using like 2.5, 3 ounces of that to equal like what those other ingredients would have. And it's great. And the elderflower just gives that little extra something. This was a vodka drink, but I think gin could work really nicely in this too. I think it works well with those flavors.
Yeah, any clear liquor would go with that. Yeah.
So far it's pretty tasty. I made a double since we're recording double today, so I don't have to make another drink in between episodes. I
did not plan ahead that well. I am drinking a mojito spritz.
Okay.
The bottled mojito I got from Reckless Farm Town Distillery.
Nice.
Reckless Town Farm Distillery. That's the right way to say it. And then I just poured some club soda on top, and it's delish.
Nice.
So my next drink is going to be much stronger, so I had to start off slow.
Yeah, you have to start slow. So what I'm talking about today is because it's National PA Day and my birthday. We'll talk about the representation of PAs in media, and then a little bit about who we are, what we can do, and where the future is for us. So I think on one episode, I might have told my story into becoming a PA, but I'll retell it during this at some point for the listeners. But Nicole, before you knew me going to PA school, did you know what a PA was?
Yes, but I don't think I could define it. I'd heard about them, but I don't know if I had necessarily visited one. My knowledge was very, very minimal. I knew it was a thing. That was about it.
I mean, honestly, same for me until I ended up into this program. Like, I ended up applying for this program. It really wasn't something that was huge. So we started college in the late 90s, 97, and PAs were not in every doctor's office at that time. They really weren't. So growing up, we wouldn't have seen them. So we wouldn't have really known them. So like I said, we'll get to my story, but the way I'm going to kind of approach this is a couple famous PAs in media, and then a little bit about what we are. So one of the older representations is actually a character on ER. I don't know. Did you ever watch ER? Like
here and there, not consistently. I feel like we were a little bit on the young side for that.
Yeah. So it was Jeanie Boulet was the character. She was portrayed by Gloria Rubin, and she was officially a physician assistant, although in the show she was sometimes duties that were either under or above her scope in the show. It wasn't quite accurate. But she was interesting because she was a character who was Black and also throughout the series ended up being diagnosed with HIV. So it was a character who was very familiar, likable, known on the show, and then had two sort of things that broke, and challenged sort of some typical stigmas about, those things. So she increased awareness a bit, but she didn't quite stand out. She was a supporting character. And then the next one, which I may cover this person on their own, Hayley Arceneaux. She is a real life, non-fictional PA who was a childhood cancer survivor and went to space. So
the story is, if she can do it, y'all can get off your butts and make dinner.
Right? And, she literally has done it all. But she wrote a book, which I read, and then there's also a children's version of the book that is really neat. And it sort of helped to, again, get more of the word out there, what a PA is. And it showed sort of the type of resilient person that she is in general. Her book is amazing. I'll definitely, I think at some point I'll do a whole episode on her. But the biggest character that was sort of the longest shown and more of a star in any series was from the TV show Royal Pains. Do you remember that one?
I do. I don't know if I necessarily watched more than like an episode here or there, though. Like that I didn't lock into as much as some of those other medical shows.
I mean, I definitely watched quite a bit of it. Honestly, I wasn't able to rewatch leading up to this episode because I was going to have to pay for like season on season to rewatch. So I'm going a lot based on what I watched when it was actually out. It was out from 2009 to 2016, and there were 8 seasons with 104 total episodes. And it was like a medical comedy drama. It was set in the Hamptons. And the premise was this Dr. Hank Lawson, who had a concierge medical practice, who treated wealthy clients in the Hamptons. And, he went to their homes and did house calls, and it was very boutique. And in his staff, he had this PA, Divya Katdare. I don't remember how to pronounce it. But she was portrayed by an actress, Reshema Shetty, and she was a Indian character. And she was a physician assistant at Hank Med, which was the name of his practice. So she was an Indian American woman, but she was from a wealthy traditional family. She was very educated, competent, like a very driven character. But in the show, her parents actually disapproved of her career choice and wanted her to get into an arranged marriage. So that comes up throughout the series.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's because I feel like a stereotype that I've heard, which I'm sure is a stereotype, is that a lot of Indian families traditionally want their children to be doctors or lawyers or something like that. So I would think they would be happy that she was a PA.
Yeah. I mean, I see a lot of very, very successful Indian American women nowadays that are absolutely doing all of these things.
Yeah.
But that's how this character was portrayed.
Yeah.
So again, TV shows, they're never going to have a perfect portrayal. They do stretch things a bit, but there are things that they show that she is really doing, going in, taking an initial history and physical on a patient, examining them, working with Dr. Lawson to work on a differential diagnosis and a treatment plan. She's doing some procedures, some things like suturing, that would definitely be a PA level procedure. Drawing blood and giving injections, usually as a nursing or medical assistant, but I would say in a concierge practice or a house call practice, it would make sense for her to be doing all of those things. If I go to a house call for a patient, I will draw their blood and give them their B12 shot or whatever. I'm not going to make another staff member come with me to do that. So in this setting, it actually made sense that she was doing all of those things. She assisted in acute things, some dramatic things, adrenaline injection to someone who's dying on the beach. It's TV. We got to do all that. But they did portray her in a way that she was like professional, but also a warm personality, and was explaining things. So that part was pretty accurate. And then they exaggerated some things for drama. They had her sort of her autonomy, sometimes pushing boundaries, questioning Dr. Lawson, sometimes doing very high stakes procedures that would typically not be done in the setting she was doing them. But she did participate in like elite diagnostics and cutting edge treatments of this show, things that probably the non-wealthy wouldn't be able to have done.
Yeah.
So, I mean, throughout the show, the arc of the character was pretty good. She started out as a great, competent PA. She was trying to balance her professional ambitions along to her parents' expectations. And there wasn't a possible arranged marriage during the show. And she was engaged to him, but she was torn about the whole thing. And she wanted to, at one point, she was going back and forth whether she was going to leave the practice because of her family's pressure, but she decided to stay, at first to assert her independence. Like, I'm an independent woman. I could do both. I can do the the working wife, mother, all those things. She does eventually call off her wedding, and, then her parents cut her off. Oh, you have to throw the little personal drama in there. But she eventually does that and commits to her career. She has a couple other little romantic entanglements. And they do show her growing in the business, like taking on more responsibilities of the business end of Hank Med. Eventually, she does navigate an unplanned pregnancy, motherhood, medicine being balanced, and then later actually reconnects with the guy she was supposed to marry in the beginning, having grown, I guess, both of them. And so it's interesting. She really did have a nice arc and have some nice growth throughout, and, did continue to represent, her profession and her independence. So by the end of the show, she's married to that original guy, raises the child, and is a successful PA. So we'll say she was a total PA success.
Nice.
And it was interesting because it was one of the first South Asian female medical professionals in a major show. You would think with the amount of South Asian females who are in real medical things in every scope, whether it's physical therapy, whether it's nursing, whether it's a physician, but on TV, not always represented.
Yeah.
So that was big, and it was a nice way to show a real smart, driven woman, and not in a way that's necessarily a turnoff, because sometimes they do that too. They have to make a professional tough woman a bitch, basically.
Yeah, she has to be a man-hating,
right?
I don't need anybody sort of thing.
Yeah, it was a pretty good representation. So, the thing is, that was how many years ago? And I can't think of another PA who's been represented on TV. And my Google searches couldn't find any either. Even in The Pit, which was amazing, they had residents and they had attendings, but they had no nurse practitioners or PAs. And maybe that's because their ER, when you do have an academic center, you are staffing with a lot of the residents. So maybe you don't need that. In a more community hospital who maybe doesn't have residents, you would use more PAs and NPs in that setting.
Right.
I'm not saying that The Pit is bad or that they, left us out or anything angry like that. It's a great show. But it was just interesting because an ER is a huge place for PAs.
Right.
Okay. So what is a physician assistant / associate? Nicole heard me give this spiel quite a bit when we did career day at our old high school.
Yes.
So a PA is a licensed medical professional who practices medicine in collaboration with physicians. So it used to be more of a dependent role in most states, and we'll go through a little bit state by state. There are going to be various ways that collaboration is. Sometimes it's a direct supervisory role. Sometimes it is considered a collaborative agreement. But as a profession, we are not pushing for independent practice, but we are, as a profession, trying to push for optimal team practice, which is a different way of looking at things, as that we all work well as a team together. Yes, I can do some things independently, but we always have that team there for backup. So that's the goal, is to allow PAs to practice at the top of their education and training, and to use them for what they're trained for, and help in medicine to care for more patients.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of the bottom line. We need providers out there in every field. I mean, psychology, geez, we need 1 million more of you.
Yes. Yes, we do. We need more therapists out there. That's what we need.
We really do. We really do.
And you don't have to be a psychologist to be a therapist.
That's something else maybe we could cover at some point, is the different types of therapists and the social workers who can do therapy, and school psychologists, and all those different things. So that's on you at some point to cover. But PAs in general can diagnose, treat, prescribe medications, can assist in surgery. Typically, our role is defined by the scope of our supervising physician. So, which means if I work in pediatrics, the scope of my supervisor is pediatrics. I can do anything in pediatrics. If I work in dermatology, there you go. If I work in internal medicine, if I work in surgery, I believe across the board in most states, probably all states, you do have to have your supervising physician physically there during surgery. But say for cardiothoracic surgery, a great, way to show this is maybe the supervising physician is up at the top of the chest, opening it up, and the PA is down at the leg, harvesting the vein you're going to use to do that bypass surgery on somebody's heart, and then comes up and assists further. So they can be doing other tasks within the surgery independently, but with the supervising physician physically there. For all other roles, the supervising physician does not have to be physically present in the same building, in the same anything. Technically, in New Jersey, it's only that they have to be able to be contacted by electronic means. So phone, text, whatever. My supervising physician is about 30 minutes away from me in a different office, but he's always available to communicate if I need to. And in some settings, like an emergency room, maybe on your state, usually, well, I'm not sure how ER does this, but on my state license, I have to put who my supervising physician is, his name. And New Jersey rules used to be that you couldn't have more than 2 or 3 PAs directly under each physician. But then they had to make caveats for situations like urgent care centers and ERs where you could have more. And I think you just had to do a separate paperwork for that. But in an ER, you may work with a different attending physician on different shifts, right? You're not always going to work on the same schedule as this same person.
Right.
So you may work this week with Dr. A and this week with Dr. B. They're generally going to be there for the most part in ER, but there are some rural ERs and places in these medical deserts where the PA might be the only person physically on site. And then there's somebody on call from home because you live in the middle of a very rural area where you physically just don't have enough physicians and other people to staff it. And so again, it's going to vary state by state, and so it's going to vary facility by facility. So you can have state laws, and then your hospital bylaws can be more restrictive than your state laws. They can't be less restrictive, but they can be more restrictive.
Yeah. It sounds similar to what little I know about like nurse practitioners, that same sort of thing where like there's some things they can do independently, other things they're supervised and need to be able to contact people and all that. Exactly.
And what's interesting is, and this is why there's sort of a discrepancy in the way the laws are written. So PA laws and NP laws came up independent of one another, right? And so it's not like somebody came head to head and say PAs can do this and NPs can do this. They each had their own growth. And honestly, the way a lot of these laws get written is because of lobbyists and money. So when I actually first graduated, we could not write controlled substances. That required our state organization in New Jersey hiring a lobbyist. So that's using all of our, yearly dues and hiring somebody to get somebody to support a bill to get that passed. That's just the way things work. And so in some states, because NPs fall under most of the nursing boards, they have a bigger lobbying power behind them because of numbers. So sometimes the state laws don't always make sense side by side. But in general, we can have very similar things. That's another discussion. Maybe I'll cover NPs or have somebody on to give a little more nuance to that, because there are definitely some differences. And again, it state by state can vary greatly. So basically, like we're saying, team-based care is what we're looking for better patient outcomes, improved management of our chronic diseases like diabetes and hypertension. And we're using that language to try and describe the relationship changing from supervising to collaborating for a more modern feel of what we're actually doing in real life. So the history of the profession. So this is where October 6th comes from. Good old Dr. Eugene Stead. His birthday is October 6th, 1908.
He's a little bit older than you are. Just a little bit.
So he actually created the first PA program at Duke University in 1965. So he's recognized as the founder of our profession. And basically he started this based on his colleagues that were military corpsmen in the early 1960s who had some medical training, and he wanted to be able to translate into a civilian role. So he came up with this 2-year curriculum to expand their prior education that they already had from being in the military and to become physician assistants. And so the first formal education program was started in 1965 at Duke, and that's kind of where things went out from. And the first national certifying exam for PAs was in 1973. They started in the 80s to expand into specialties. And then really from the 2000s forward, things became much more growth, and actually some global recognition. There are some countries who have something. Now, their roles may be very different, but something similar to a PA. Canada, I would say, is probably the closest to what we have here, that they have PAs. So how do you become a PA? This actually has also had a lot of evolution over time. So in the beginning, some of these were bachelor programs. And those had to be phased out over time because of what we really needed. So nowadays, you typically have a bachelor's in some sort of a science that hits all those prerequisites. Biology is probably the easiest one to hit everything you need to apply. Typically, nowadays, you also need at least 1,000 hours of patient care experience, which that has changed significantly even since when I started. And then you usually have to take an exam like the GRE, and then you have to apply to these schools, try to get through that pool to even get an interview, and so on and so forth. It has become very, very, very competitive. I take prospective PAs students who are like shadowing, because in addition to like patient care hours, they need shadowing hours. And I've met such amazing, smart, competent students who can't get into PA school. I've written them recommendation letters. They have whatever grades, but you really need to stand out nowadays. So it's really, really grown. Right now, most PA programs are somewhere between 2 and 3 years long, depending on how the program is structured. And they are typically a master's degree. Mine was a full 3-year program. I did a 1.25 years classroom, and then the rest was all clinical rotations with like one class back a week at the actual campus. And typically you're getting somewhere over 2,000 hours of clinical rotations. I added mine up. I looked at my old resume, or CV as we call it, and I had more than 2,500 hours just from school back when I graduated. So it's going to vary based on your program, but there's a minimum set forth for that. And then once you graduate, you have to pass an exam. So I know certifying exams, they're in a lot of professions. Now, for you, you have a national exam that you had to sit for?
We had a national exam, and then you have to do a state exam. So you have to do both.
You have to do both.
And then it depends on what state you're in, the order you can do them in. So I went to school in Pennsylvania where you could do your national exam immediately after you finish your schooling. But in New Jersey, you have to do your supervised hours first before you can take the national exam. So I had to do about 2.5 years of actual work before I could take the national exam. And then once you pass the national exam, you can take the state exam, which is called the jurisprudence exam. So it's more about the laws and, how you're legally able to practice. Interesting.
Yeah. I mean, there's such variations among professions on the way these things work. So we actually have a national certifying exam. It's called the PANCE, P-A-N-C-E, Physician Assistant National Certifying Exam. That is run by a group called the NCCPA, the National Commission for Certifying Physician Assistants. So you have to pass that initial exam. When I first graduated, you actually had to retake a certifying exam every 6 years. Mm-hmm. They then changed it to every 10. So I'm on my first 10-year cycle, and that means next year I have to take it. So I actually just literally yesterday ordered on Amazon a review book to start feeling it out.
Mm-hmm.
I'm lucky, though, that practicing in primary care, since we have such a very broad knowledge base because we have to know a little bit of everything, that I think I'll be okay for the exam. Where somebody who's been in a specialty for a long time, it's a lot more daunting. So say you practice orthopedics for 20 years and now you got to go take an exam that covers pediatrics and internal medicine and cardiology and all these things. So hopefully it'll come easily when I refresh myself. And then in addition to taking your exam, every 2 years, you have to do 100 CMEs. Those are continuing medical education credits, which I know you have to do something similar.
Mm-hmm.
50 of those have to be category 1, which is basically either a formal lecture or article with questions and has to be certified by like one of those big organizations for a category 1 credit. And then 50 of those can be category 2 credits. Category 2 credits can be personal journal reading. I always have PA students coming through, so that's easy. Supervising students counts toward that. And then once you have your certification through that NCCPA, so you have to renew that, maintain that, you can get licensed in your state. So in New Jersey, I have a state license that has the same CME requirements, luckily, so that all matches up. And then I have a controlled and dangerous substance license through the state of New Jersey and a DEA license. So that's what makes it that I can prescribe controlled substances. So just a couple little stats and things. So PAs can prescribe in all 50 states and DC. And some states do allow PAs to work without a supervising physician, but I don't have a list of specifics because there's a lot. Currently, there are over 168,000 certified PAs in the United States. The median age is 38, and it is about 69 to 70% female skewed. So that about matches. My PA class was very tiny. I think there were 22 of us. It was like 21 women and 1 man. So we were a bit skewed. When I speak to my current students, though, they're saying it's more like 75-25. So I'm not sure, why that is, because we all make great PAs, man or woman.
Yeah.
And then we can be found in almost any specialty, but the biggest bulk will be in emergency medicine, urgent care, family medicine, orthopedics, and dermatology are probably the biggest ones. But we're seeing them now in cardiology, in psychiatry, in surgery of all kinds, neurosurgery, cardiothoracic, urology, and so on and so forth. They're projecting that employment is going to continue to grow. So between 2022 and 2032, those 10 years, they think it's going to be going up about 27%. So it's continuing to grow. The schools are training them and putting them out there. The jobs are there. And as far as those who are interested in this and salaries and things like that, it's going to vary very much by your geographic location and also by what kind of specialty you're in. So there are very specific like anesthesia or certain kinds of dermatology who can make crazy money. And there are people who maybe work in a underserved area who make not great. They do a salary survey every year, the AAPA, which is the American Academy of Physician Assistants, which is more of our lobbying-ish group. And they collect data and they put out like a report every year. This source says, this is from the AAPA and the NCCPA, that the median salary in 2023 was $126,000. So above and below that, can definitely occur. And so it's really, at this point, the outlook is good. I think that, we need more people out there taking care of the population that's aging. But it's still a little bit of an uphill battle defining the role sometimes, trying to explain to people who you are and what you are.
Yeah. Same.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it is. And, I'm lucky that now that I have basically, I'm the only one in my office. So patients who come in know they're coming to see the PA. So the expectation is set. They get to know me. They trust me. I have patients tell me all the time, like, I'd rather see you than some grumpy doctor. I love doctors. They're not grumpy. I'm just saying what patients say.
Yes.
But
I get
So they've grown to know me, understand me, and respect me because of a relationship we've built. But I do feel that some places like urgent cares and ERs, I'm sure it is an uphill battle sometimes, trying to explain to patients, get them to trust what your knowledge base is, and that you're not going beyond your role and your scope. I'm glad I don't have to have that conversation all day. But in general, the expansion is there. Telemedicine is huge. Rural care, like we said. And then again, some countries who are now adopting similar models. So that'll be interesting to see how that grows in other countries. I believe that the UK also has something, but they have a lot less responsibility than our PAs do. So if anyone wants to go to PA school or even has questions, you can email us about that too.
Yes.
medicalmediamixer@gmail.com. Email us and ask questions about it. I am all for talking about my profession because it is something that not everybody knows about. So I think it's pretty cool. And my way of finding it was a little backdoor. I didn't really know what it was.
I mean, if I'm being honest, I didn't know the difference between a PhD and a PsyD. I just applied to programs and I got into a PsyD program, and that was when I learned the difference. So
okay. Yeah, I don't even know. I just know the letters after your name, but
yeah. So a PsyD, it's a doctor of clinical psychology. So that's someone who is specializing in actual person care, clinical care, where a PhD, a lot of that program focuses on research.
Got it.
You can do research in a PsyD program. I actually did, my dissertation was theoretical, so I had to do research for that. And then I also was a co-author of 2 other dissertations and did research for them. But it wasn't required as part of my program.
Yeah. There are now doctorate programs, so I didn't touch on this, doctorate programs for PAs that have come about, but that is not a requirement of our profession. And the tracks in those, so they will have a clinical track, they'll have an educational track if you want to go into PA education, and they have some public health and administration type tracks. So it doesn't change. I think clinically right now with what I do, it wouldn't change my role and it wouldn't change my income. So it's not worth it for me. But if somebody wants to go into administration or into education, that would make more sense for them. And if you're going into education, often if you're going to work at a program, they're going to pay for you to work on your doctorate. So that would make sense.
Right.
If my job paid for me to get it, sure. I would do it just to do it. But right now it doesn't change what I do. So it's not necessary. I'm hoping they don't push for that to become the norm. I just don't think it makes sense. But we'll see. I mean, everything's changed, right? I mean, high school is like college now, and college is like your master's. And so
yeah.
It's
and I think that, that's a good topic for maybe, an after hours, what is it? Last call.
Yeah. P.S. We have a Patreon and we have a patron. And so we have to now start doing our after chats, which we are calling Last Call.
Yes, the last call. I'm like, I thought that was a trick question. I'm like, didn't I just say it? Yes,
I know. We had a discussion right before we recorded. What are we calling these?
Last call. But yeah, I think that would be a good conversation for last call about how the educational expectations are changing and how that impacts so many things, but also impacts, the ability to make a living wage too.
Absolutely. Schooling is expensive.
Yeah.
Very. I mean, right now, even just thinking about the expectation, my 8th grader is now looking at high schools, and we aren't looking to private high school, but our county has a career path program where there's a bunch of specialized high schools that you can take an exam and apply for like you're applying to college. And she's looking into high technology, which is an engineering and math, science, STEM based one. So it's like that has become like a higher competitive level, just high school, just to get in, compared, which what I would equate is to what we were looking at for colleges. So it's crazy. So definitely in the show links, I'm going to put some links to the AAPA, very general information, what is a PA, the history, a little infographics and things like that. We also have, I didn't mention, there is something called the PAEA, which is the Physician Assistant Education Association, which oversees all of those programs at all the PA programs in the country. So everything is like, has its own regulation levels to keep everything in check and to keep the profession where it should be. And then you would have to really, I think on the AAPA website, they do have links to each state's specific rules. So that's where you'd have to look up for your own state what the regulations are. But we kind of covered the very general.
Nice.
All right. So any questions about PAs, PA Day, my birthday?
Do I have any questions? No, I know all of that stuff. You told me everything, plus I read the notes. So I'm ahead of the game.
And because you heard me give the spiel at the career day. So
yes. So I'm very well versed in
in what and
how to be a PA.
Who I am and what I do.
Yes.
A PA.
And I know other PAs. You are not the only PA that I know. So that helps as well.
Shout out to Crystal.
Yes.
Who also has the same birthday as me.
She does. Ironic.
And we're both PAs.
Yes.
So it was destined in the stars.
It was.
All right. So everyone find us on Patreon. Medical Media Mixer.
So we can make more fun content for you.
Yeah. Your silly after chats will not be as clinical based and will definitely be just more randomness. You get to know us a little bit better. All right.
Or so, get to know us a little bit worse, maybe.
Possibly, dependent. Yeah. And those, we're not going to edit like anything. You're going to get it all.
Oh, boy.
So thank you for listening to Medical Media Mixer.
The perfect cocktail. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Medical Media Mixer podcast. If you enjoyed the conversation, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review us on your favorite podcast platform. Your support helps others find the show. Want to keep the conversation going? Follow us on social media. We're at Medical Media Mixer Podcast on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, and on Pinterest, the Medical Media Mixer board.
If you'd like to support the show and help us grow, check us out on Patreon. Patreon.com/Medical Media Mixer Podcast. And on Buy Me a Coffee, buymeacoffee.com/Medical Media Mixer Podcast. If you have a topic idea, feedback, or just want to say hi, send us an email at medicalmediamixer@gmail.com. You can also stream all of our episodes and find more info on our website, medicalmediamixer.podbean.com. We're available on all major podcast platforms, so no matter where you listen, we're there. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, keep mixing medicine and media.